Well, first, I kissed a couple of frogs before I got my team to where it is. So I feel like you kind of organic chemistry with people
Okay.
and be like-minded and, have a similar like end goal. So
Hmm.
definitely, that definitely played into it. But then, I see a lot.
Hello, everybody. I'm Brett McDermott, and this is Doing Big Things, where we speak with thriving entrepreneurs and dive into the systems, habits, and mindset that are allowing them to succeed on a massive level. I want you to find one piece of advice in this conversation that really speaks to you and put it into action today. I am so pumped up today, guys, because we are joined by a former United States Marine and current New York City real estate agent, mega producer. Years ago, he made the shift from being a chef at some of Manhattan's finest Michelin-starred restaurants to taking the real estate world by storm and building one of the more profitable teams in all of New York City real estate. Just last year, his business produced over $1 million in revenue. And today we're going to try and figure out how he's doing all he's doing. John Dugan, thank you for being with us today, brother.
Hey, Brett, thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
This is fun. I'm excited for this chat. So just right off the top, and I mentioned it in your intro, $1 million in revenue, whether you're a real estate agent or just a business owner in general, is an incredibly impressive mark to hit. To be honest with you, it's a mark that 99% of business owners across the country will never hit $1 million in revenue in a calendar year. Have you ever just kind of sat back and just kind of thought about what an accomplishment that is?
Only recently, and probably not enough, because sadly, we're always thinking about what's next. I remember thinking about like, oh, what if I do a $5,000 deal? What will that look like?
Right.
When it happened, like, I don't even think I thought about it for 2 seconds because I was worried about the next thing. Um, I will say, like, as of recent with coaching and trying to just elevate myself, do things like you said, take a moment, take a breath. I've started to like, give a little bit more thought to some of these things, and so I need to do more of it. But I have started to, and really, it's hard to believe.
Pretty cool stuff, man. Really cool. And I've seen a lot of your ascendance into this realm of
You've
success, and it's
seen
been
it.
impressive. Yeah, I've seen it all, man. It's been an impressive rise. So, just to kind of dig into your story a little bit. So, before real estate, you worked in the restaurant business. You were a very successful chef at Michelin star rated restaurants. At what point in your journey in the restaurant industry did you start to kind of get an inkling or make that decision that you wanted to make the transition into being an entrepreneur into an incredibly competitive field that is New York City real estate?
Hard to pinpoint an exact date. I think I've been doing this since 2015. But prior to that, I was already thinking being a chef probably isn't the best long term job for me. Uh,
Sure.
Fortunate enough, I mean, I learned so much. I would never change anything. I honed a lot of skills that have been transferable to real estate. Specifically, like, really realizing the value of your team. You're nothing without your people. Shout out to
Sure.
the home team. Um, but for like 2 years leading up to that, I realized like the hours are terrible. I was the highest paid guy in the kitchen, but on salary. And when I did the math, at one point I was making less than the dishwasher with the number of hours I was putting in.
Got it.
And you'd go through crazy, crazy stressful time services, and then look at the owner on the other side, like enjoying your new dish in his suit, relaxing. He has his own stress, but I just knew that there was more out there for me.
Love that. Love that. And I just kind of said it right there. But there were some things that you took from being a chef that you directly apply to real estate that allow you to thrive. And it sounds like the number one thing is you're nothing without your people. Would you say that's kind of the biggest lesson you took from the restaurant business?
Definitely, definitely. That, and the other one thing that comes to mind is just surrendering yourself to like the insurmountable amount of work that you have to do to get ready, and just be like, I'm kind of too dumb to worry about it. I'm just like, whatever, just saying, sure, you're going down, just do it with a smile. That's been super helpful also.
Love that. Love that. That's good stuff right there, man. And, you know, kind of also talking about your story, I mean, you were a United States Marine, obviously, and you're a really hardworking guy. I mean, from the moment I've met you, I've known that work ethic was kind of one of your superpowers, right? Like first one in sometimes, last one out sometimes both. I mean, work ethic is certainly something that you've got down pat. I got to know though, do you attribute some of this work ethic to being a Marine, or is it something that's kind of been with you since birth?
A little bit of both.
Okay,
Both of my parents, particularly my father, are very hardworking. And I had very big shoes to fill. It was really like, excuse me, it was really expected, that you're going to be a hard worker.
sure,
And I've always been kind of like hyper, a lot of energy. So had like trouble in school and such. But when I found something I liked, like it was like this incredible amount of drive. Like it was hard to eat for me to even put into words. And so there was like four things like in my life: the Marines, being a chef. I worked in a pizzeria when I was a kid that I absolutely loved, and now real estate. And like those four things, I did really well in. Everything else if I'm not like fully, taken by it, I have trouble, kind of focusing on it or giving it my all. So, you know, the Marines and the kitchen and stuff, it really kind of helped hone the skill, if you will. But I do believe that I was born in, with some of it, and definitely was fostered at a younger age by my parents.
pretty cool. And I didn't even know about that. So the pizzeria job, you named it as one of the four things that you've ever really kind of dived into head first and really became passionate about. So were you just kind of like working behind the register? Were you delivering pizzas? Were you making pizzas? What were you doing?
So it's a funny story, actually. I worked across the street actually, it was at my father's office for like a summer, just like doing filing, and which I hated, like absolutely.
Okay.
I absolutely wait till I was talking about being the first guy in and the last guy out. I was the last guy in and the first guy out and taking a lunch break. But I used to work across the pizzeria, and I just loved it. It was, an old Italian guy and his two sons, and was a couple other workers, and I can't explain it. It just grabbed me, and so I started just literally hanging out at the counter for like 12 hours a day, just filling the napkins for free. I was like 12 years old,
Okay.
um, cleaning the bathrooms, whatever, and they tried to shoo me away for a while, but I couldn't. I don't know. I just like it was the first place I just felt really at home, if you will. That wasn't my house,
Sure.
and and then I started working there one night a week for like $4 an hour.
Okay.
And then they saw that like I started as I got a little bit older, I was working better and harder, and more often, even if it was for free, than a lot of their paid employees. And so one of like the things I always say, like that's kind of a timeless thing, is good help is hard to find, and I feel like they
Sure.
saw that in me, and I ended up working there for years. So it was, and again, grew a lot, learned a lot, honed that work ethic, was able to focus it in a positive way, that crazy energy I had. So it was awesome. It was really awesome.
Nice. So pizzeria and Marines and being a chef and now real estate are really kind of the four things that have brought the best out of John Dugan in his life. And I'd say you don't need to find a fifth thing.
Now,
I think real estate's going to be just fine.
hopefully, motherhood I'm doing all right in, but I'm not looking for anything else. You're right.
Oh, I've seen you with your kids. I know you're a phenomenal father, John. And just kind of before we move on from your time as a Marine, obviously work ethic part of the equation there. Anything else from your time as a Marine, skills or mindset wise, that you think that you directly bring into the business world today?
Two things. One is like grit and determination. Again, kind of too dumb to be offended, or yeah, offended, I think is the right word, and just failure is not an option. Um, Not to be conflated with being competitive, which I did for a long time, but I recently realized that like I am competitive, but I'm much more determined. So like if I lose, it doesn't. If I'm competing and I lose, like it really sucks, and I might want to do something else. but like being with determination, kind of being at the forefront. Like if I lose, it sucks, but like I take something out of it, and it never has swayed me from like my end goal.
Okay.
So really like that grit and determination, and then leadership, big
Right.
time. Uh, the Marine Corps has such really developed, in-depth leadership courses, of which I was fortunate enough to take. I was in the infantry, so it's like, leading Marines in combat. Imagine what you have to, which I was fortunate and privileged enough to do. So imagine what you need to do, instill the bond you need to have with someone for them to actually follow you into combat. So they really like deep dive deep into it, and that for me has been one of the most important things, um, to my success in building a team, and getting people to follow me, not really, like come with me. It's not really like follow me, like go on the journey, with me. And then one other thing I was thinking of that was really funny that I realized in preparing for today was, I have been training my entire professional career since the age of 10 or 11 at the pizzeria to kind of eat a shit sandwich with a smile. Seriously, like every single job I had was rough, and you were always given, like, it was tough conditions, too much work, not enough thanks, not enough money. And it was totally fine, because I really loved what I was doing. And if I think about that now and my start in real estate, which was really hard, I mean, like getting started is no joke, especially in the
Sure.
city. It ended up being one of my biggest advantages above and around my colleagues and the other competition, was just being okay with that crap sandwich.
Yeah, listen, you eat a lot of them, especially in the first 2 to 3 years.
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty much the core basis of your diet as a real estate
yeah,
agent is eating those
you're
sandwiches
right.
with with the crust cut off. But actually, really quick, I'd love to just kind of dive a little bit deeper into your leadership style, right? Because you kind of talked about there the Marines maybe taught you how to be an effective leader. And as you were speaking, you said, I don't really even think of it as them following me. I think of them as coming with me on a journey. And I think even the name of your team is the home team, right? You didn't name it the John Dugan team. And I think there's something to that there. You're like, this is about us. This isn't about me. This is about us. What would you say just your general mindset and strategy is towards leadership?
Well, first, I kissed a couple of frogs before I got my team to where it is. So I feel like you kind of organic chemistry with people,
Okay.
and be like-minded, and have a similar like end goal. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely that definitely played into it. But then, I see a lot of real estate teams struggle because they just don't work. They just like, it's a revolving door of junior agents or assistants. And the common thread I see is like they barely interact with each other. For me, the real estate aspect has become the smallest part of what we talk about. We laugh together, we've cried together, we've argued, we go out we have weekly get-togethers, monthly outings, rock climbing, and so forth. When people have gone through tragedies, we mourn with them. We support them. We send groceries to people's house, if they're sick. So it's really like treating them like family. And there is a bit of a structure. I mean, there needs to be structure, like a hierarchy, if you will. But we really set our ego at the door. We try as best as we can. And even with that hierarchy, like if I'm the team leader, I still ask for and respect everyone's input. And I would say more times than not, they have better ideas than I do. And I try and put my ego aside as much as possible. If it's the better idea, we do it. If someone feels I could be doing something better or different, I listen. Um, and we all have different strengths. We were just commenting on this marketing thing before we signed on, and I wish I could take the credit for it. I wouldn't have thought of it in a million years, and that was someone else on the team. So really, getting to know your people, being involved as they want you to in their lives, having empathy for them, realizing that like it's all about the relationship, how deep you have with them, because you will have ups and downs. I mean, we've all seen it in the
Sure.
market, in their lives, in your life, in business, whatever the case, disagreements with each other. And so, if you have that solid foundation and you're able to come back to that, you can really weather any storm. And we've been able to. And in fact, in some of the more challenging markets, we've actually grown, but talking to each other, not overgrown or undergrown, grown at the right pace, and we're able to like
Mm-hmm.
maintain steady growth throughout any market so far, and everyone's very happy.
That's excellent. And you can tell, I mean, the people on your team, they love being on that team. It adds a lot of enjoyment to their work, just having that camaraderie. And, you just said it, you really prioritize, growing the relationships within the team with weekly get-togethers and monthly outings, things that I would assume most real estate teams are not
Definitely.
doing, right? Most real estate teams are just like, here's the leads, you better close a certain amount of them. And that's pretty much what's going on here. That's really, really good stuff, John. Thank you for sharing that. And then one other thing I thought that you said, which was great, was you're not there to have all the ideas. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's going to be the members of the team that really have the best ideas. It's your job to listen to everyone's ideas and then kind of decide which one's the best idea, which one we're going to act on. But it's not like it's John having all the ideas and then the teammates are task rabbits. That's not the structure.
Quite the contrary, actually. Um, I would say we have the equal amount of ideas, or they have better ones. We all kind of fill different roles in a way. Another thing
Mm-hmm.
that surprisingly happened organically. It's not like started working with Alexa and said, you're going to do social media. She just kind of did it and does it
Right.
excellent. And Shanae, you're going to help with community outreach, and Val, you're going to help with community outreach. Sadly, because I'm a big community guy, didn't even dawn on me to do these kind of things. And both of them are out in the community trying to give back. And from that, other than just it being awesome, it helps business. Um, yeah, so we all kind of fill different roles in that aspect. Another guy, I hate to show my age, but at 41, I still feel hip and cool. But I realized that, Jazz Veer is connecting with some of these younger folks way better than I ever could or would, and
Mm-hmm.
probably closing more deals with them than I could or would. And so, it's been some work for me to like relinquish some of that and deal with my ego a little bit, but I really do try, because I know that rising tide rises all ships. And it's been helpful. Always in retrospect, we're like, we made the right decision. We're so brilliant. We do it X, Y, and Z. But in the moment, man, you got to swallow your pride, which isn't always, that easy, and realize that that's why you guys work so well together and take other people's lead. And I try and do that as much as possible.
I love that. That's really good stuff, John. So we've kind of touched on a few of your core skills that have allowed you to succeed. We've talked about your work ethic and your leadership. I want to talk a little bit about your skills on the phone. And you are an absolute beast on the phone. I've heard you speak to leads and clients. I mean, there's few people I know that are better at converting a lead to an appointment to a transaction. I mean, you really know what you're doing in that regard. So I got to know, is there any mindset or strategy that you take into these initial phone calls that allows you to thrive?
Great question, man. Another hard, sharp learning curve for me. And I actually have
Mm-hmm.
to give a shout out to my wife, because I was taking calls 24/7, in the office, at home, 11 o'clock at night. So, in bed at 6 a.m. in the morning, like whenever they would call early on, you know how it is. You got to chase every lead. So
Sure.
she would hear a lot of this stuff. And I would, from the second I picked up the phone, I didn't listen to a word people were saying. I had to tell them every single thing that there is about me and what I can do for them. And a bunch of them were, did not materialize. And she was like, well, what are they calling? What are they asking you? And I realized, wow, I have no clue what they're asking. Yeah. So
I love it. You're like I'm sticking to the script. I don't know what the hell they're saying.
uh, so that was really helpful. So then I realized I was doing zero listening. All the talking, no listening.
Mhm.
So honestly, now I just, I can tell people are tense sometimes when they're talking to a stranger, especially if it's an online lead or even a referral, which is a bit easier. But I just say hi, like literally, and hey, how are you? And you could just tell it just disarms them in a way. Like, okay, you're a human, you're not a robot or a human impersonating a robot impersonating a salesman. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, hey, how can I help? And that's literally what I say.
Yeah,
And
I like that a lot.
they talk, and I just let them talk, and maybe a few comments here or there. But after that, um, they're asking me, well, tell me a little bit about yourself, that sort of thing. And so
Mhm.
that obviously, like, you know, there's a little bit more tactical to each different call, strategy to each different call. But honestly, just listen as much as possible. Also, go into it that like this call probably won't materialize to anything, and a lot, and I say that I have to disclaim that I'm not just flippantly taking any call or not giving my all on everything. But another thing I realized early on is like I was hanging on to this lead so much, this call, like it my desire to close it or to even get to the next step was destroying it like right away. So I just take, we take 10, 15, 20 calls a day sometimes. If you just do enough of them, you just get to talk to enough people. First of all, just the law of numbers, several of them will, materialize. But
Yeah.
be surprised to have people calling me for years, and I don't mind it, just asking me questions, or maybe they've ended up referring me to someone just because they enjoyed our conversation. So um, I actually try and sell as least as possible now on the phone, and it's been, the most helpful.
Love that. I mean, that's really good stuff, right? Just go in genuinely interested in the person that you're speaking with, really trying to learn about who they are and what they're looking to accomplish. And then sure, you add in some nuggets of value, where they seem appropriate, and go in almost with no expectations, knowing this call might lead to nothing, but I'm just here to listen and to help where I can.
Yep, you're right.
And I spoke to Mick DeStasio, who's also a $1 million producer like yourself, and I asked him a similar question. He gave me almost the exact same answer. He's really just there to ask questions, listen, and learn about the person he's on the opposite end of the phone from. And that's pretty interesting stuff.
He's definitely someone I listen to, so it's obviously good advice.
For sure, for sure. So we've spoken about the work ethic that you have, but you're still a human being, and I'm sure you still wake up some days, and it's not like, even though you love real estate, maybe not every day you're jumping out of bed ready to go into the office and make the calls that you need to make. So I'm curious, and I love asking this question to really motivated, hardworking guys like yourself. Do you ever feel resistance to work, to the things you should be doing that day? And if so, is there anything that you say to yourself in those moments, or how do you push through that resistance and continue to take daily action towards your goals?
Great question. It's kind of a two-part question for me.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I definitely do sometimes. Like, and anyone who tells you that they never feel any resistance, I think they're probably kidding themselves. But God bless them. Like, this is a 24/7 job. Like, we all just wish we could do something else, here or there. And on the other side is I've also ignored that, for a long time, and then experienced real burnout, which definitely affects your productivity. So on the burnout side, like, preemptively give yourself a break here and there because you just need a mental break, whether it's playing an hour of ping pong with buddies at the office, which I do from time to time, or go, whatever your thing is. Definitely you need mental space. But on like a day to day, sure, sometimes I just don't want to go put on a face and meet so and so and run around the city all day. But you know thankfully, I'm just naturally motivated, again, energetic. And,
Mm-hmm.
and, and number two, my children are a huge motivator for me. So, it's a pretty easy decision to make when you're like, I just want to sit here and like watch Netflix or
Sure.
feed my kids. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm like, okay, dude, just get up and go. So I tell myself, I'm kind of like rough on myself sometimes. I'm like, don't be a wimp. I might use other words. Um, you know, you're only gonna hurt your children. You know, it's pretty motivating, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
definitely plan time for yourself. Um, but in that day to day resistance, aside from the love of the work and people, sometimes you just need a kick in the butt. And I tell myself some stuff to, shock my system, and it works pretty well. That also, I have several coaches that can, if I need to, aside from our normal sessions, if I need to talk to them for like 5 minutes, they're always there for me, or they'll send me something to listen to, and quick like the right brain food can really alter your brain chemistry pretty quickly, change your brain chemistry pretty quickly. So those are like little hacks that I do. And also working out. I really, really love my Equinox membership. I think actually you were one of the motivators for me actually getting one. And just being there and being around, you know, being in the environment, everyone's so energetic. That's really helpful.
Sure.
And the last thing is being around my team. Um,
Yeah.
I really hate, forgive me, working remote. Now, it's grown on me a bit here or there. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are definitely applications for being able to like zoom into, a meeting or whatever. That's just something like this. Like, and so you don't have to come from Jersey, whatever. Like we're able to just be more productive for meetings like this. But
Sure.
to never be in the office again, I think is like, it doesn't work for me and my team. And I think like it's actually really worked against a lot of other folks. So I know that like being around my team can really pick me up and help push me to get through whatever I need to get to. So hopefully,
That's really good stuff. And that's like something that everyone listening should take to heart, because John Dugan is one of the most consistently hardworking guys on a daily basis that I know. And listening to the fact that he feels this resistance sometimes, but he has some pillars that he leans on when he does. One of those being he taps into his why. He thinks about his kids. Number two is he prioritizes fitness. That's going to keep you in a peak state working hard. He built a team that keeps him motivated, and he's also doesn't hesitate to be hard on himself. And I think that is an important thing. I think sometimes we've all been told to be so nice to ourselves and coddle ourselves and all this stuff. But I asked a similar question to Jacqueline Isaac, who runs a powerhouse design firm. And she gave me a similar answer. She's like, I don't think there's anything wrong with being tough on yourself, and if you find yourself being lazy, you got to call yourself out on your own BS and say, get up and get stuff done. And I think that's a really, really important hack that people can kind of
definitely.
implement
I live.
into their own mindset. Cool stuff, man. Cool stuff. So I know you just kind of tapped on coaches, and it sounds like you have a few. What type of coaches do you have right now, John? Not most people have no coaches. Sounds like you've got like a team of coaches.
Um, so I right now have officially three.
Okay.
My real estate mentor coach, if you will. We still meet regularly, and he's my life raft whenever I need it. Ben Willard, who I know is also on the podcast. And then quarterly, I go to Baltimore. I've been doing that for almost 5 years, um, and it started off in a different manner, but long story short is it's a group all of entrepreneurs of small businesses, and the first half of the course, if you will, which was 2 years, you go through a specific coursework on things to make just develop you as a CEO, if you will, as a business owner, because CEO is only one aspect of it, but to develop you as a business owner,
Okay.
get you thinking like a business owner. And so we'd meet there quarterly. After that 2 year program, it became like a mastermind group where we just work out each other's issues, and I happen to be in there with one other guy from real estate, but there's 8 or 9 other people from different states in different businesses. There's a guy who runs a beauty warehouse, there's an HR woman, a news reporter, some financial folks, a couple of attorneys, a headhunter, et cetera, et cetera. And while all of the issues may look a little different, they're also at the same time very similar.
Sure.
And so I can tell you specifically to that, every major, in retrospect, of course, because we never know what we're doing when we're actually doing it.
Sure.
Major, like, next step I needed to do came out of those meetings. And the biggest one, when I was trying to make a team and it was just not as structured, and it was the early stages, they were like, dude, you need a name and a logo. And I was like, and when I did, people bought into it like you couldn't believe.
Yeah.
And there's been many examples of that. And then my third coach, he's kind of like the alpha Buddha in a way.
Love it.
He's a really like alpha guy, but he's also he's a unique guy, man. And we talk about consciousness and transcending your ego. And he's a big shot in business as well, but looking at things through a different lens, realizing where your ego, that your ego is involved, and trying to like just at least identify that, and give yourself a second to step aside and say, is this actually the path I want to go down? Is this actually the smart thing? So he's been super helpful as well. I'll probably give him a shout out in the comments.
Sure.
Follow him on
Sure.
Instagram.
Absolutely. I mean, that's pretty cool, man. I mean, you think about almost like an Olympic athlete. They don't have like one coach. They've got a few coaches. And I think a lot of people that are performing on the level you're performing on probably do have 2 or 3 coaches, right? You've kind of got the one-on-one mentorship with Ben. You've got that quarterly mastermind group of small business owners. And then you've got the spiritual coach on the side. And like those 3 pillars right there probably do a good job of kind of holding you up and pushing you forward.
They do. They do. I couldn't do it without any of them.
Cool stuff, man. Very cool stuff. And kind of on that note, would you say, I'm a big believer in lifelong learning. I think that, learners are earners, readers are leaders. I think anyone that I talk to that's doing big things are usually putting a little bit of time into podcasts or audiobooks or reading or conferences. Would there be any books or conferences or podcasts that you can kind of point to that really led towards a massive leap in your growth?
Definitely. Podcast, Doing Big Things, man. I absolutely love your podcast.
I appreciate it, man.
Super local, and focus on like what we do on a daily basis, and I've been really blown away by it and got a lot out of it. And I'm not just saying that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love Joe Rogan. Learned a lot. Got a lot of different perspectives on things from the people he's interviewed. And love Tony Robbins, man. Love Tony Robbins. And you talk about conferences, go to Unleash the Power with Tony Robbins, which I did. That thing had me jazzed up for like 8 months, like a physical change.
It's powerful. It's a powerful 3 days, 4 days.
And again, my Buddha coach, Baba Mario Simon, I listen to his stuff every day, and it's just, it alters the chemistry in your brain. I don't know how else to say it. Like, when you tap into what you have inside of you and you use these hacks to do that, it's really moving. And then books, Good to Great, or anything by Jim Collins is awesome.
Sure. That's an all-time business classic.
And then another thing, taking that spiritual side into it, I just read a book that really changed my life, man. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Sure. It's an incredible book.
The 1-second version is this guy who was in concentration camp and survived. Obviously, he wrote several books, but he basically, trying to show you of the strength you have within you, which you can translate to any job, any tough situation. That basically this guy was able to look inside of himself so much into his mind that like he would be being beaten by a guard and not even know it, because inside his mind he's having a conversation with his wife, and he, it just like really put into perspective the things that we deal with as, on a day-to-day basis as entrepreneurs. Like, we're all going home to our wife and kids if a deal dies. Like, don't.
Absolutely.
And things are never as bad as they seem. And look inside yourself for the strength. I find you can't believe the power you have inside of you. And, all of these have been very helpful for me to, try and bring that out.
Very cool.
Yes.
Very
So,
cool.
well, that's what I got going on right now. And
I mean, plenty there, right? So you got the conferences, the podcast, the books. I think when I speak to most people that are doing big things like yourself, they are prioritizing, learning is a lifelong endeavor. It's not something that ends in college. And I think the people that really grasp onto that concept are the ones that can continue to grow and do great things into their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, as opposed to kind of plateauing, almost right out of college. So I think that's really powerful stuff. Our input determines our output. I totally believe that.
I like.
So let's kind of talk about just, the $1 million in revenue. Your team did over $1.5 million. I want to get a little granular on where that business came from. Is that all referrals? Are there a lot of internet leads involved in there? Is there any cold calling? Is there another lead pillar I'm not even thinking about? Like, where's that business coming from?
Mostly at this point, it's a wide range of referrals.
Okay.
Other than referrals, definitely some online stuff. I don't know that we do so much cold calling, traditional cold calling, but we do mailers and things like that. We've gotten some decent feedback. So online leads for sure. Community events have been a new thing that we have been trying to do, which in a way is like a warm cold call.
Sure.
We're actually doing tomorrow in Long Island City a Easter egg hunt. It's a free event for the community in Long Island City, where we are providing the eggs, some chocolate, water, things like that. We've gotten a few local businesses to come, and they're going to set up a little table and do whatever they do. There's a couple of daycares and a dance thing and so forth.
Okay.
The local dentist is going to walk around in the Easter Bunny outfit. Yeah. Instead of chocolate, I think he's either doing only toothbrushes or chocolate and toothbrushes,
Okay.
But you want to talk about doing mailers and stuff? We waxed and waned on the flyer we were going to send around, and
Sure.
put on a Mommies in Long Island City Facebook group that we were doing this, and in 3 days, 200 people registered their kids. Like,
Wow.
it was insane.
Well, that's incredible, man. I mean, that's a really successful community event that you're about to put on.
Yeah. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that for Halloween also, and maybe a couple of other ones. If we did like 4 of those a year, I mean, and they took well, or 2 or 3, it was really like an eye opener. So like doing things, giving back to the community, has really been helpful. And then referrals, man. I love giving referrals. I'd way prefer a referral than a cold lead,
Sure.
And so really like working that network and sphere over the last few years, in traditional and non-traditional ways, has really been helpful. And through that, we've gotten like a diverse portfolio: sales referrals, some rental referrals, developer referrals, exclusives on a rental building. Again, all through some fashion of a referral. So really a big component of that.
I want to dive back into the community event though really quick. So these 200 people that registered, when they registered, did they have to put in like their contact information?
Yeah. So
I mean, that's incredible. So you basically just built a list of 200 residents in the neighborhood that you're looking to do business. And in essence, you basically just built relationships with them. So if you call them or email them or text them, you're not some Joe Schmo off the street. You're the guy that just put on the Easter egg hunt that their kid had a blast at. I mean, that's something that you got to keep doing. I mean, every quarter. I mean, that's huge.
Free, and it makes their kids happy. I mean, as a parent, it's like you're speaking, my language, so to speak.
Super, super smart, and something that most agents are not doing.
Yeah, sorry. What are you saying?
I said super smart and something that most small business owners or agents are they're not doing.
To include me until someone else on my team brought it up. So there you go.
There you go. There you go. And I know you also said referrals, obviously a huge piece of the pie. What's your system for keeping in touch with your network? Are you calling them? Are you texting them? Are you emailing them? Like how are you staying top of minds with all these people?
Yeah, great question. I'm more of like an old school guy, so my CRM, if it looks good, actually, I should say it was so horrible. But again, another person on the team is really good at that, and so they've really cleaned it up for the whole team, and so that's been helpful for like birthday reminders and things like that. But for me, I literally have a list of what I call the VIP list, and that's got some people I never did business with, but I just know, not to sound opportunistic, but I just know that they're good people to like be in touch with.
Sure.
Um, and I literally look through that once a week and say like, who do I need to reach out to, and this and that, and I try and meet them. Like, some people move away from the city, so a text or a call or a handwritten note around Christmas or the holidays or whatever it is, we do that. But like the second we hang up here, I'm running down to a client meetup for lunch, for a past client.
I love that. How many people are on this VIP list?
Uh, Maybe 200.
Okay, so that's a lot of very important
But
people.
but to be fair, Brett, there's probably a VIP list within the VIP list.
Okay.
There are people that are actually like that we have a better back and forth. Some people, sadly, and not because I want them to, they're once they're done or whatever, like nothing against you, but they're busy and they're not looking to meet up for lunch every 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as you continue to make that effort, remind them that you're there. Again, not even just sending a mailer, you're reminding them that like, hey, I was personally thinking about you because I was in your building yesterday, and just hey, that it just a lot of times gives them a feeling that you really care, which I do,
Mm-hmm.
genuinely. And so even if you haven't heard from them for a year, all of a sudden, I've seen many times, not every time, but many times, at month 11, they're like, hey, remember me? Sorry I missed, I got all your messages. Sorry I didn't respond. But hey, I need your help again. And so, if that's the cadence that they want to go back and forth in, that's totally fine, for me as well.
Love that. How many one-on-ones face-to-face would you say you do with this VIP list on a yearly basis?
I try for at least 2 a week. Some it's more, some it's less.
That's dynamite. So you're talking about almost 100 face-to-face, maybe a little more than 100 face-to-face meetings with your most important sphere members on a yearly basis.
Yes, and some are repetitive, but yeah. So it's not, So sometimes I might meet someone more, like I have a standing date with somebody, once a week, and
Okay.
meet. But yes, yeah. Again, through him and through developing my relationship with him, he's introduced me to other people as well. So
I love that. And I don't want to move off referrals quite yet because, I mean, you are generating them on a really elite level. And how about the other people that they don't have time to meet up? Are you calling them actually voice to voice, or are you more of like a texter with those people to cultivate the relationship?
I've kind of had to adapt to what people prefer.
Okay.
I would have felt before calling them was the better thing to do. But to be honest with you, more people are texting right now, and so if that's where I get more responses from them, and it's
Sure.
out of their day, that's fine with me. There are still some old veterans that like some old folks. I shouldn't say old folks. Some old school folks
Sure.
that love the phone, and I love that. But I've become more of a texter now because it's just kind of what people want.
Nice. And just to dive even a little bit deeper, what are you actually sending them via text? Are you sending them market information? Is it just a, hey, how you doing? I'm thinking about you. Like, what's the message that you're sending to these, Sphere past clients?
So, what they do get our weekly market update via email.
Nice. And I think weekly newsletter is the right cadence. I think too many small business owners send it on a quarterly basis. And to me, I don't think that's enough. I think weekly is what people actually want.
So they get a weekly market update and then a monthly newsletter where we'll put some pictures of what that month's get together was, and I might write a recipe. And so I feel like they've heard enough about like the market and those. So very
Mm-hmm.
rarely is my text something about the market. It's honestly like, hey, was thinking of you. How's your son Justin? It's really like
Nice.
a personal, because I would love to be best friends with all of my, most of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's in a professional manner. Like you think about the people that you might refer business to, even if it's in another type of work or whatever. It's people you want to like. I know I'm gonna give my father a referral of someone who like I'm very comfortable with, and I know I don't even have to think twice. They're gonna take care of my father. Not
Right.
someone who's just sending me like if he needs a fence, like the best fence material every week. It's someone who knows me, and we talk about this and that, and I see that they take the extra step to like remember little things about my family or whatever. That makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. And so I try and do the same genuinely for other people. So my weekly or whenever regular get touch points with them is more personal as it can be. And then of course sometimes they ask about the market, and I just happy to rattle that off. But if not, it's just like honestly, I'm happy when they're just like, hey, that's so great to hear from you. Thanks for remembering.
Nice. I like that. Now these facts that you remember that make them all, warm and fuzzy in their tum tum. Do you just have a steel trap for a memory, or do you actually take notes when you're with them or on calls so you can remember that, her son is in architecture school? Do you actually like take notes in like your Google Doc, or do you just remember this stuff?
A little of both. I'm a terrible note taker, which was actually my New Year's resolution was to take better notes. So I did take pretty good notes for our meeting today. So far
Great
I'm
notes.
strong in April 2023. But I don't know why. There's certain things I just remember those things about. I remember a lot of personal things about people, and have tried to start keeping better notes, because you can't.
Love it.
I do miss things. It's just.
Yeah. Very cool. So there it is right there. There's the kind of the system is, meet up with your real A plus clients, and the ones that maybe don't have time for face-to-face meetings, shoot them a text message, whether it's monthly or quarterly, whatever you think they want to receive from you on more of a personal note. And then they get the market information from your weekly and your quarterly newsletters. And there it is. I mean, there's the system that you are generating, $1.5 million of revenue worth of referrals with. And it's interesting to hear it. It's pretty simple, right?
It is.
It's simple when you map it out. And now, of course, executing that on a weekly basis, it takes effort. But it's not like you got to, reinvent the wheel. You just got to be consistent with your touch points, and you got to actually care about people.
You remind me of something I used to say all the time to new agents. It's the simplest money you'll ever make, but it is not,
Yeah.
you know. And people think it's easy money. It's not. It's simple. You're right. I am not a brain surgeon. I am not going to do some type of surgery or this or that today. We get to know people. We show them apartments. We take care of them. Make sure they're serviced well. Make sure everything logistically works out for them. They close.
That's really good stuff. It's the simplest money you'll ever make, but not the easiest. I mean, that's good stuff, John. I like that line a lot. Great. I mean, great podcast today. I think anyone listening is just going to take a lot from this. I mean, if you talk about you're a business owner that wants to build a team, or you want to generate more referrals, I mean, there are some super actionable items that they can take from this talk. Here's a question I love to end on, especially when I'm talking to someone like you who was maybe doing something before they started their own business that they didn't really love or feel fulfilled by. What would you say to someone who's listening, who's maybe in a job they don't love? They've got something else in their heart they want to do, but they're not taking action on it. They feel kind of stuck. How do they get unstuck?
Well, definitely take the leap. Okay. But prepare for the leap. Okay. A lot of folks I've seen, they're just like, I'm going to do something else, have zero plan, zero money saved, and go to, a commission only type business or whatever, starting your own business where you're not going to make money for X amount of time. So number one is research the leap before you take it. Definitely take it, but research it. Prepare for it. Maybe have 15 or 20,000 in the bank, knowing that you're going to be, in the real estate business, you're going to be dirt poor your first year. Like, it is what it is. It's just about survival. Um, you know, every real estate agents have to renew their license after 2 years. If you make it to year 2 years and 1 day, you've outlasted 90% of your competition. That's just things I started, start to change, where you start to get a little bit more referrals, working with more experienced agents and things like that. So you're going to be broke in the beginning, no matter what business you start. Prepare for it, number one. Number two, talk to people in the industry that are not trying to recruit you. Okay, talk to people you trust. Go find out in your sphere if you know any real estate agents, and tell them, be like, look, I'm thinking of making the jump. Can you give it to me straight? Whatever. I'm looking at opening a restaurant. Talk to so and so. Actually lives and works in a restaurant 24/7. That is not trying to get something out of you or not a recruiter. If you understand what you're getting into, some people think that I'm maybe trying to talk you out of it. Maybe I am. I don't know. But if you do all of that and still move forward, you are going to be at a huge advantage than the people around you. You're going to be mentally, financially, physically, emotionally, and strategically prepared to go through a major life change that's going to be challenging at first, but ultimately is like the best thing you'll ever do. So definitely have a plan, even if it's just a plan, like you've thought it out. It doesn't obviously always go according to plan. But if you're about to start a commission-only job and you have $5 in the bank, I mean, we already know how that's gonna end up.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Seriously,
That's really good advice, man.
definitely take it, but research it.
For sure. And I remember my first couple of years in real estate trying to make rent. I remember there was one day where I was trying to sell my Cal Ripken rookie card in Midtown because I was like a couple $100, short on rent that month, and I was, trying to hawk this thing to different vendors. I was hoping I would get like $1,000, and nobody was offering me more than like 150. So I wind up keeping it, and I actually keep it on my desk now. And Cal just kind of stares me directly in the eyes every day and reminds me, keep working hard, brother, because you don't want to go back to Midtown with me.
Absolutely.
John, thank you for being here. Thank you for being so transparent, authentic, and really giving some people some valuable nuggets today. Where can people find you online, or just kind of keep up with your listings and what you're doing?
Yeah, well, we have, and I'll put it in the comments because I'm probably going to say it wrong, but we have our own website, hometeamnyc.com. And then we have an Instagram and Facebook that would be great if everyone could follow, and that is Elegrin Home Team. I believe either that or it's Home Team, but I have to just double check. So I'll definitely send those over to you right away. Yeah, and give me a call, 917-589-9480. I always answer. So.
There it is. Love it. Old school. First got to give his phone number out on the air. That's what I'm talking about. John Dugan, you are the best. Thank you for being here today, man. Everyone out there who's listening, I appreciate you being here. If you could leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening, I greatly appreciate it. And we will see you next week. Until then, guys, get out there and do big things.